Advent is a time of creative tension. I'm not talking about the tension of getting ready for Christmas, buying presents, sorting out family arrangements, putting up the decorations and all that. That's not necessarily creative, that's just tension. I'm talking about the tension between the now and the not yet of Advent. In Advent, we're mindful that we're living between the times. We're casting our minds forward to that great day at the end of time when Jesus will come again to establish his kingdom. While as we prepare also for his coming the first time in Bethlehem, we're thinking about the future while not losing sight of the importance of the present moment. We're trying to live our lives now in light of the coming consummation. The tension comes out strongly in the reading we've heard from the book of Romans. St. Paul tells his readers to wake up, be ready for the day which is near, he says. And then in the next verse, he tells them to live honourably in the day. This may have caused his readers some confusion. They might have thought, how can I live in a day which is yet to come? They had to get used to the tension between the now and the not yet. Jesus had come, but he will come again. In last week's sermon, I was talking mostly about the not yet side of this creative tension. I was talking about the end of time, which is yet to come, but which it takes centre stage in this season of Advent. But if we're to have a proper understanding of time and our place in time, we need to maintain the balance of the not yet with the significance of the now, the present time. We see that in the reading from St. Paul. He tells his readers to focus on the present. Now is the moment, he says. And he's writing in the present tense when he says, live honourably in the day. There's a strong biblical tradition of what might be called the sacrament of the present moment, the importance of now. There's that beautiful passage in the Old Testament, in Ecclesiastes 3, that begins, for everything there is a season, a time to be born and a time to die. And it concludes, God made everything beautiful in its time. And Jesus too emphasizes the importance of the present moment when he says in the Sermon on the Mount, do not be anxious about tomorrow, let the day's trouble be sufficient for itself. In a Christian understanding of time, we pay attention to the importance of now, the present moment, and at the same time, we remember the significance of the end, the not yet, that which is to come. We don't prioritize one over the other. They're to be held together in creative tension. We understand time by holding together the now and the not yet. And much of our thinking as Christians follows a similar pattern of this holding things in tension. For instance, in Advent, we're thinking about God acting in dramatic fashion at the end of time, coming in a cloud, but all the world will know what's happening, that he's coming. We remember that whilst preparing also for his first coming as a Christ child, as a vulnerable baby. Two very different understandings of the coming of God. For us to have a distinctly Christian understanding of God, we need to hold both of those images together. The God who created the world and will one day recreate it is most clearly visible to us in the form of a baby. And much of our Christian teaching requires us to hold things together in creative tension. Think about the person of Jesus, who's obviously at the centre of our faith. It's a basic tenet of our faith to understand Jesus as being both fully human and fully divine. To understand one and negate the importance of the other is a heresy. We need to hold both to be true at the same time. And we can't say where his humanity begins and his divinity ends, or where his divinity ends and his humanity begins. We hold them both together. They're both to be seen together in the person of Jesus. Think too about the Bible, our holy book. It is at the same time a divinely inspired text and also the work of human hands. And again, we can't see where one begins and one ends. We can't parse out the divine bits and the human bits. They're to be held together. The Spirit of God inspired the text, and human authors wrote it, edited it, and in the councils of the early church decided what books should be included in our Bible. If we see the Bible as just a human creation, it would be no more than any other ancient text. And if we so emphasized it being divinely inspired, we could slip into some sort of unchristian fundamentalism. If we're to understand the Bible aright, we need to hold together the fact that it is both God-breathed and humanly written. We live in a culture that wants to reduce everything to black and white, to say not this but that, either or. And in Advent we're reminded that as Christians we need to resist that trend. We're called to hold things together in tension. And just in case you think that's an example of the church's escapism from reality, well, the world of science has slowly caught up with this understanding. Let me say something about physics. The well-established principle of quantum mechanics holds that every particle may be described as either a particle or a wave. It expresses the inability of the classical concepts of particle or wave to fully describe the behavior of quantum scale objects. As Einstein said, it seems as though we must use something, the one theory and sometimes the other, while at times we may use either. We are faced with a new kind of difficulty. We have two contradictory pictures of reality. Separately, neither of them fully explains the phenomena of light, but together they do. That's how the theologians of the Christian church have understood truth for centuries, and science has finally caught up. And when Einstein talks like that, he could be talking about any of the doctrines that I've been mentioning so far in this sermon. I think I've taken a rather philosophical turn this week because I've been thinking about space travel in the light of our visit this week from David McCandless III, the father of, or the son of the first man to have an untethered walk in space. He's coming on Wednesday. It's hard to balance the infinite dimensions of space with the mundane concerns of our daily life. How do we fit into a world that's so enormous, so beyond our understanding? We either can drift off, get our head in the clouds, or get so caught up with our mundane life that we lose a sense of the scale of the world and our place in it, and the wonder of God's creation and the scale of God's creation. It's not easy to maintain a healthy and balanced perspective on life. And this came home to me this week sharply when I was reading an interview with William Shatner, better known as Captain Kirk from Star Trek, who you may remember has been into space recently with Elon Musk. And he spoke eloquently in this interview about the wonder and the mystery of space travel and how it had changed his life to get that perspective on Earth from space. The interviewer asked if he'd like to do it again, and he said, well, I'm sitting here with my wife eating a lovely egg sandwich. I think not. Captain Kirk had succeeded in enjoying the moment whilst retaining the perspective of eternity. And that's something we can all aim to do in this Advent season. In Advent, we consider the tension between the now and the not yet. We resolve to live in the day, knowing that the day is almost here.